Hey, I'm Don Mooers, and welcome to Montgomery Weekend Review. Governor Hogan will take office, saddled though with a large debt that was just revealed. Brian Karem, executive editor of the Sentinel News Service, is here to explain the situation facing our incoming governor. The Housing Opportunities Commission, HOC, has moved from public housing only to a voucher rental assistance program. Sally Roman, commissioner on the HOC, has this story and so much more. Jubilee, an organization that promotes housing and support to adults in our community, has found that coalitions as well as cooperation among similar agencies can benefit everyone. Tim Wiens, executive director of Jubilee, has the details of this program that he has helped launch. And finally, we have with us Elaine Carney, a resident of Jubilee Housing. She's here going to tell us about what her experiences have been. In fact, she's got a great roommate in her housing and what it's like to be living in Montgomery County. Elaine, I'm looking forward to talking to you. Coming right up. Brian Karem.
Yes. How you doing?
Governor Hogan.
Not Hulk.
Not Hulk. Will Governor Hogan be a hero or will he be a Hulk?
Well, if you listen to him, he's going to be a hero. But Governor O'Malley, our outgoing governor, has left him a little $300 million deposit, which kind of smells, and he's got to try and clean that up.
Wow.
Released by the legislature this week that we have a $300 million operating deficit, and so the idea of taxing us less and providing more is going to be taxed heavily when Hogan comes into office.
You, on this program, you regularly criticize the sort of tax and spree world that Montgomery County and Maryland had. This governor's coming in. He's come in pledging not to raise taxes. He wants to bring down spending. Certainly in quite a few precincts in Montgomery County, he won. He won in just outside the Beltway, in places. It wasn't just Damascus. He won in fairly solid in the past Democratic areas.
Yeah, he did well in Democratic areas. He did lose in the three largest counties in Baltimore, Prince George's, and Montgomery counties, but. Of course, the turnout was the lowest in those three counties.
Well,
so
in Montgomery County, he
did better than he
The
and he did win some precincts in Montgomery County.
He did. He won
Damascus.
Well, he also won Our Lady of Mercy.
Yes.
He won overwhelmingly, just right at River and Bradley.
He did a lot better in Leisure World than a lot of people thought.
That was crazy.
Yeah, but the problem he faces is between the idea and the reality falls the shadow, as the poet said. And the idea of taxing us less is really going to be taxed when he gets in office because of the shortfalls. And so he's got to really take now the legislature has said they've learned from the elections that people feel they are overtaxed. So they're going to heed our warning. But at the same time, with the $300 million shortfall in revenue, he's going to have to take a real serious hard look at all the programs in the county, and this is going to really hurt Montgomery County. I think education is going to suffer. I don't think all these new buildings that the BOE in Montgomery County wants to build will be built.
BOE, Board of Education.
Yeah.
Now, there's a website people can learn so much more about what you've got on the Sentinel, this issue and so many other issues. What's the
www.thesentinel.com.
That's great.
Yeah, well, we try.
I feel like somebody out there with a gun or something on the ready, the Sentinel.
Yeah.
What do you see, in this for the fight coming up with the legislature? Because Maryland has, according to the folks who study this, the strongest governor position in the country. The weakest legislature, the strongest governor. So really, it's in his hands as to what goes through, what doesn't, at least propose. All the legislature can do is cut. They can't add.
The legislature is weak on many levels, and Hogan is coming in. Like I said, it's my one little comic bit, but it's true. He sounds already a little bit like, hey, I'm telling you, I get no respect. He's doing the Rodney Dangerfield because the legislature has, it's overwhelmingly Democratic. He's got a big problem with that.
So wait, he believed that Lieutenant Governor Brown's statements that the state is in great shape, just give me a third O'Malley term and everything's going to be great?
It's a politician who believes anything.
I'm just asking you.
I mean, I didn't believe it when it was said.
Right.
And I don't think he did either. I think it's blue smoke and mirrors, and I think it'll be business as usual, and it's going to be really tough.
So has he signaled where he thinks he'll find these savings? You know, where he's.
Well, it better not be in my pocket. that's the response from everyone. Is like, I don't know where you're looking, but don't look at me. But he's going to have to make some serious cuts somewhere. And in Montgomery County, one of the most populous, richest counties in the state, where do you think it's going to hit the hardest? Here. There's no way it can't, no matter what he does.
Because isn't it often a cascading? Because Baltimore really is paid for by the state through the monies that are transferred from Montgomery County. So Baltimore's going to be off limits probably in Baltimore County. So then you cut in Montgomery County, you might cut in Howard, and our thing, we don't want to lose these services, so we'll put more local money in, and then you change that equilibrium between state and local even more for future, don't we?
Which it's just a ripple effect, and you know. Look, at the end of the day, stuff that has to be funded will be funded. Stuff that people are going to go, well, we can do without, they're going to have to do without. And it's going to be some hard and fast evaluations. I think the schools are going to suffer first.
Now, the $300 million deficit, I'm wondering if that, you know, there are obligations that they have for next year. Is that part of that?
Yes, and some of it already is, and then they're projecting $600 million in fiscal year 2016 if there aren't some big changes made. So it's an escalating debt.
So some part of it is the promises that have been made, not necessarily what was funded this year.
You know, hey, I promise I'll give you everything you want. We'll,
good. What about transportation?
What about it?
There isn't going to be any.
Well, there isn't now.
No, that's true.
I mean, I tell you, the biggest, you know, they had the pie in the sky thing was widening 270 from here to Frederick. There's not going to be any state money for that.
What about the Purple Line? Will the Purple Line be
Purple Line will have to survive. It's already most of it's already been spent and allocated for, so it's there. But any new projects, but see, that happened because of the ICC too. It drained, you know, transportation funds for a very long time, and of course, and that's what we were talking about before. They had set up, you know, like kind of separated and shielded transportation funds. So that's one of the reasons why we're looking at shortfall. So short-term solution, you're going to have transportation just real slow.
Well, it's going to be up to Governor Hogan, Governor-elect Hogan, next 4 years, pay attention to Montgomery County, or else he's going to be a one-term governor.
Go Hulk, go.
Mr. Ehrlich forgot about it. Hopefully Mr. Hogan won't forget about it. Miss Roman, Sally Roman, how are you?
I am good.
So Housing Opportunities Commission, we hear about HOC quite a bit. Would you mind spending just a few seconds telling us exactly what HOC is and what your role as a commissioner on HOC?
I would be glad to. HOC, or the Housing Opportunities Commission, is Montgomery County's housing authority, and this means that we operate the federal programs, public housing and the voucher Section 8 program, and some other smaller ones. We're also a housing finance agency, which means that we can float bonds both to subsidize our own projects and also for private developers in return for a large section of affordable units, usually around 30% for about 30 years. It varies, but that's a typical deal. So we do both of those. We also own some housing that isn't in federal programs. We love mixed income, and that's what a lot of this is, where the market rate units actually subsidize the below market rate units. Instead of taking a profit home, we use it to bring down other rents, and so that's kind of cool, I think.
And the pressure on HOC is getting greater and greater as the housing prices seem to go up. There's wage stagnation. It's tougher for people to find affordable housing who are in the so-called, blue collar job or whatever what's the
All
term?
of us.
Moderately priced.
Working people, and
Anybody working.
and most of the people who live in our housing are working. I would say, except for the senior properties, and their people are legitimately retired, but most other people are working. So, and our waiting list is, it's hard to say how long it is because we haven't been able to open it for a while. We really don't, people don't leave the program, so we really don't get a lot of vacancies to fill with new people. But we're kind of involved right now in what we think is pretty exciting, which is a new HUD program called
HUD is Housing and Urban Development, the U.S. agency and federal government.
That's absolutely true, and they're the ones who fund the federal housing programs. And because public housing, which is kind of the main source of federally subsidized housing, I think, other than vouchers, rental assistance, this housing has really fallen behind in taking care of the buildings, in long-term maintenance, capital things. And this will allow us, by converting our public housing to a voucher program, we'll be able to borrow against the units, which we can't do right now. So we will be able to do things the way you would, taking a homeowner's loan and a home equity loan and replacing your roof
kitchen,
or
yeah,
your
kitchen, yeah,
kitchen
sure,
or
so I think-
upgrading your kitchen.
Right.
We'll be able to do that, and then we'll pay it back with the rents that we receive. And we really think it'll be good for the area as well as for our residents. It'll give our residents up-to-date, good, solid housing. It will also allow us to bring everything up into higher environmental standards, so that
Increases the value of the property. too.
and that too, and the neighborhood too. Really, I mean, it should make housing more compatible with more
Livable.
livable, more everything. We also hope to add some appropriate amenities to people. We have to replace the low-income units one for one, but not necessarily in the same place.
Okay.
So we're going to be able to have more mixed income situations and move people to areas that don't have much affordable housing and
Do you
move.
find a stigma? Is there still a stigma to moderately priced housing and low price housing?
To some degree.
How do you defeat that?
I don't know. You hope that by living in the same neighborhood and realizing that everybody's working too and everybody has sort of the same problems.
Sure.
But isn't
that
part
the-
of it by spreading these housing throughout the county?
Yeah,
so
a
that they're not just,
deconcentration is a really,
right, that way you get to know your neighbors and they're real people suddenly.
yeah, I think that.
Yeah,
that
no
really-
Cabrini Green. That's what's nice
No,
about Montgomery.
and
County.
Montgomery County's never had it, but we do have 3 of our 11 multifamily public housing buildings that have really reached the end of their lives functionally, and we will plan to replace those, possibly with bigger ones.
Now, you had a very successful career in the planning department.
Right.
Now you're a commissioner on HOC. What brought you to HOC, or what interested you in doing this and working in affordable housing?
Well, when I worked for the planning department, I was the housing and demographic planner, really, for park and planning. So I've been following housing issues in Montgomery County for a long, long time, and I've enjoyed it, enjoyed all the people I met, really hope to make a difference. So this seemed like an opportunity. I'm retired, but though I must say I had 3 HOC meetings yesterday, so pardon me, it's not quite as retired
You're
as
not
maybe
retired,
I thought.
retooled.
Yeah, that may be, but unpaid.
There you go.
But it really is satisfying. It's awfully technical, so I've had to learn a lot, particularly on the finance.
Retired, but retaining zest for life and purpose, which is a nice place to be.
Thank you.
We'll be right back after these messages. And we're back, Tim Wiens. It's always great when you're on the show.
It's always good to be here, Don.
Jubilee, I mean, when I just saying the word Jubilee, it makes me feel happy.
Yeah.
I mean, I think of just, and I think that's the whole reason why it
We're a
was
happy
named Jubilee.
place.
Yes. So remind us quickly about what Jubilee does.
Sure.
And then we can talk a little bit about this this partnership cooperation with like-minded organizations.
So we provide residential services for adults who have developmental disabilities in Montgomery County and do it in a variety of ways. We serve about 130 people in over 60 locations throughout the county.
Okay. And your funding comes from?
Mostly our funding comes from the state of Maryland. It's a match of state general funds and Medicaid dollars. So a lot of Medicaid dollars mixed into that.
So, we just had Sally Roman, HOC commissioner, and I know she's probably going to want to be asking a bunch of questions here, but you're doing housing,
Right.
And one of the things we talked about, I think one of the things we want to talk about here in this segment is how you're working together, how the different organizations in
Sure.
housing are working together to serve this community, all these communities that are so necessary.
And actually, we're doing less and less housing. I mean, the model, when we started, we're about 35 years old. When we started, we opened group homes, and that was the model. And there's still group homes, but we're really not opening group homes anymore. But a number of the places where folks that we serve live are owned by HOC.
Yes.
And HOC is one of our good partners, and we're
Okay.
doing that. We're partnering with Rosario Communities, which is connected to the Archdiocese. They
Okay.
want some homes connected to their parishes.
Right.
They have support committees. We're partnering with Montgomery Housing Partnership. So we're kind of getting out of actually doing the housing and providing the services to help people live in that
How's
housing.
this
And
model
before Brian jumps in, don't want to stuff Brian, but remember your question. Website?
www.jubilee, JUBILEEMD.org.
Okay, so my question is, how do we compare this model? How do we compare to other states? Are we ahead, behind?
Well, interestingly, Medicaid is one of the main drivers at the federal level, and they're really pushing states to give people that are receiving services a lot more control over their lives. And it can be, they're not saying you can't do group homes, but giving people choose their roommates, they choose where they want to live, they have their keys to their house, they have a lot more control. So I think
That's a good thing.
Yeah, and you're seeing pockets of this around the country. I think Maryland is probably a little further ahead than a lot of other states, but it's happening other places as well.
How do you define a group home? I know that the HOC properties, we've mainly had 3 residents. Is that enough to consider a group, or is that more a group of friends
Right.
sharing a house?
So the state has a definition, and part of that definition, 3 persons can be a group home. And some of these homes that we're talking about, might look like a group home, but we don't own them. We don't rent them. The individuals themselves, like the homes owned by HOC, the individuals have a lease with HOC. They rent from HOC. If for some reason they don't like Jubilee, they can leave Jubilee and it's still their home. So
Right.
that's the difference. They have control over their housing.
And this is a more cost-effective as well, isn't it?
It
Measure.
I think it shifts cost a little bit. I'm not sure that it's more cost effective. It's more, I think, when you give people more control over their housing, they take care of it better. They can live more independently because it's
My
what they want.
definition of more effective. then,
Yeah.
And
So-
giving, and I remember from the '60s, and this is because I've had relatives that are developmentally
Right.
disabled.
Yeah.
But the idea that you could even interact with a greater community was almost like a lot. It was like revolutionary, that
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah.
And now this idea of living in your own home.
Right.
The warehousing kind of.
Yeah, it was.
thing.
Well, that's
and it
they
seems to
warehoused
be
them.
over, and it's so
Yeah.
good
Yeah.
that it's
So, I mean, have you found more support for this model than group homes?
Yeah, I think that, we've talked about the various groups that we partner with. We also partner with families. And so a lot of families will say, leave the house to your son or daughter. And so they can still live in the family house. We'll help them manage the house, but they already know the neighbors.
Right.
They're familiar with the neighborhood, so
Right.
it's not a big deal. So I think people controlling their own housing is less objectionable to communities generally than if Jubilee or somebody else moves in and buys a house.
We got about 30 seconds left, but what you're saying is not that different from what we're hearing from the elder community and advocates in terms of aging in place.
Right.
And not wanting to go out to a
Leisure
senior
world.
citizen or anything like that. So
And the other thing, we talk about coalitions. We have a grant to fund a person to kind of work at housing development, and we're working with the Jewish Foundation for Group Homes and Kennedy Institute of
Right.
Catholic Charities as kind of part of a coalition to do this together. So those are kind of our other service provider partners in addition to our housing partners that I talked about.
it's exciting.
It is
very
exciting.
complicated.
Yeah.
Well, Tim, you brought along the wonderful,
One of my-
amazing Elaine Carney. Welcome, Elaine.
Hi.
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 Welcome to Montgomery Weekend Review. Now, you're living in Montgomery County. You've been living in Montgomery County. Is living in Montgomery County a good place?
Yes,
Yeah. What's great about living in Montgomery County?
I lived in Montgomery County since I was a baby.
Yeah. Me too. Now, tell me about your house.
My house, I live in Silver Spring,
Right.
and it's a beautiful house.
Mm-hmm.
I like it.
Good neighbors.
Good neighbors.
Yeah. Got a great roommate.
I got a great roommate.
Now, tell me about how you got to this house. Where were you before?
I lived in Rockville, in a condominium
Okay.
with another roommate.
Right.
And one day I got a telephone call from my sister, and she said, "Tommy wants to talk to you."
Tommy's your brother,
Well,
right?
Tommy's my brother. Yeah.
Okay.
Tommy's my brother. I have 5 other brothers and sisters.
Okay.
And so I said, "Well, Tommy want to talk to you." So I said, "Well, Tommy want to talk to me." Tommy will talk to me.
Okay.
So Tommy, my brother,
He talked to you,
talked to me,
right? What do you say?
and he says, then my sister took me out. My sister Maureen took me out for lunch, and that's incredible because she's always busy in school, and so she said, well, Tommy, my brother said, well, how about living with Holly, my best friend, and I said, well, I have a cat, and a cat can come along.
Okay.
So the cat and me, and I decided, okay, let's live in the house.
Good. Good. And has it been nice to live in a house as opposed to the condominium? Are you happy in the house?
Yes, I'm happy now.
How's the cat like the house?
Yeah.
The cat likes the house too. Yes.
What's your cat's name?
Mittens.
Missy.
You want another one? I got
Mittens.
4.
And it's
No.
you know,
No.
Elaine's story kind of illustrates what I was talking about, because both Holly, or one of her housemates, and Elaine were living in their own apartments. They were getting a little bit older, having some health issues, and
Yes.
thought maybe it would be good to have a live-in caregiver. And
Right.
so they said, could we live together? You know, we're best friends. We want to live together. And we said, of course. And so then they went out with a realtor and looked for housing. And they looked at a bunch of housing,
Oh
right?
yes.
And
long
they
did
found
that
a
take?
house. Pardon me?
How long is that process?
Long. Very long process.
So you saw a lot that you didn't like very well.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they found a house. I mean, they chose the house. They're the renters of the house. We help them. We make sure the bills are paid.
Matter of fact, on the news one night, it was the Pepper Street, Pepper Apartments, and I called my sister and said, "Do you know there's a shooting at Peppermint, Pepper Creek or Pepper Tree,
Right.
Pepper Tree Apartment?" I said, "Well, we were looking at that house, and we were not a very good neighborhood." I
Decided against that
if I-
neighborhood.
if I was- and there was a shooting right there.
Things like that happen
And
all
I
over,
said,
sure.
I was going we were going to live there.
Good criteria.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it's a great, you know, her and Holly are best friends, and they live together. They chose the house. They interviewed their caregiver. You know, it's really about giving the people that we serve more control and choices in their lives. And so this is their house. It's not Jubilee's house, and we help her, but it's really her house. And you know, they couldn't be happier there.
Yeah, it took a long process, and so my sister Maureen said, "Well, we looked at that house, or we don't want that apartment because it was not a good neighborhood." And then
No,
there was a
sure.
shooting.
No,
And
but
then-
but
and there
it-
was a shooting. There was a
No,
shooting.
but that happens. That happens.
No,
But
no,
the timing of it, very interesting, because that means you don't want to be there. The timing. I mean, but things
Yeah.
happen throughout every place. But what do you do during the day? You're at the house.
Well, I volunteer at a. It's a retirement place.
Okay.
It's
What do you do?
I walk. Well, I play with. I go over to. It's called
Sunrise.
Sunrise.
Sunrise,
Thank
okay.
you. Sunrise. And I do different things with them. I bake bread with them sometimes if they have time to make bread, or
Okay.
play games.
Mm-hmm.
And I started out playing bingo, then I went upstairs and I play ball with them, or balloon toss, or things like that.
Fantastic.
That
Elaine,
sounds like fun.
I'm curious. Maybe you can tell. How
We have about
has
30
your,
seconds left.
How has your care changed from when you were a child to now? Better?
Yes, much better. Yeah, I mean, it was a. I went to a regular school beginning, and they made fun of me.
That must have been painful.
And it was very painful.
And no one does now. I don't.
Before I went to another school after that. I mean, the first grade was hell.
Yeah.
Excuse my language. What was hell?
Sure.
And they tested me because they didn't know what was going on. And my dad took me on a lap one day, and he said, we were reading John and Sue, John and Ann books.
We've got about 5 seconds left.
And anyway, the book was reading upside down.
Right.
And so they tested me out and said, "Oh, you need help."
Yeah.
Right.
So they took me to another school.
Okay.
They took me out.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's great to have you here, Elaine.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. And thank the rest of you for joining me today. And thank all of you and the viewing audience for joining us for this week's edition of Montgomery Week in Review. I'm Don Mooers, inviting you to join us same time, same place next week.
Same bad chance.